Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creative Amplifiers show. It is Monday. It is 8 p.m. here in the UK, noon where Lisa is. And how is everybody doing? First of all, oh, it's a great start, isn't it? Let's start again. First off, let's say hello to Mark and Lisa. Lisa, how are you doing? How's your week been?
My week's been busy. Great week. Busy week. I have a little construction going on in the background, which I will talk about later, but it's all good.
Good. And we'll be talking about one of the tools you're using to help you with
I was just
that
gonna
madness
say,
that's going on as well.
Yes.
Great stuff. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I've had a nice week. It's half term here in terms of the school holiday, so a few days off of my teaching, which means that the weather's been nice here in the UK as well, so a chance to get into the garden. We've got a relatively largish garden, and we've got a significant birthday for one of our children this year, so there's going to be like a house party and whatever, so we feel like we've got ahead of the game, it only being the beginning of June, and we've got another sort of 6 or 7 weeks before we get descended on by all manner of family and friends, which is always a lot of fun.
Very nice. Well, I've just come back from a short trip to Scotland, which it didn't rain, but it was very windy, got blown away a lot. But it was quite fun meeting Martin and Michael. So today we're going to be talking about studio setups, builds, things that you should be considering. And if you are here in the chat live, come and say hello to us. Post a question as we're going along. We can take questions as we're going. We're not going to pause for Q&A, so feel free to interrupt us at any time. You're welcome to point in there and just ask us a question. So studio builds, we're all in our respective studios. We're all remotely connected via Zoom. And obviously we didn't start like this, but I wanted to first of all talk to you both around the importance of maybe having a dedicated studio space versus basically starting off in your bedroom or your area where you want to set up your camera. So maybe I'll start with Lisa. Lisa, so when you first started sort of building content and going live and creating your videos and things for YouTube, obviously you were doing all this from home. Maybe you just talk us a little bit through about sort of how you started off and what were you working with when you started your content creation journey?
Sure. So when I started, I was doing a cooking show, and I started when Facebook Live Facebook Live. So learning to put together a cooking show set that you have to break down all the time because it's your actual working, living kitchen is a quite interesting thing. So we started off not with fancy cameras, and I think, Neil, you have some photos of the early days.
Let's go to that.
Pull those up.
Yeah, let's start with your first.
So I had no choice but to build my set and break it down every week when we would shoot, which is why we would batch shoot 4 episodes in a day or in a couple of days, just because of that. So if you see in the photo where I have the fuchsia top on, back in my shorter hair days, I have a C920 webcam, and that's how we got our overhead shot, so you could see what I was doing when I was chopping at the chopping board. Those aren't very expensive, but they worked because they were lightweight and I could put them wherever. We also had 4 other cameras like that, webcams around to get the other shots by the stove and all of that. So I also have a ring light, which I don't recommend, but that's what I had, and that's what I started with. And it worked. It was fine. That particular space had a lot of natural light, so we could get away with it. It just gave a little more oomph to the shot. And I think through that is we had a camera, like a Sony.
I can just see it there.
Yeah, there it is. That shot through the ring light, the old school way. And I think that was a Sony 70D at that time. So the next shot, I got very excited because we changed the lighting, and that thing just blew out in a good way, a natural light look into that kitchen space. So that was that. But it was a lot of learning along the way, trying to figure out, how do you light a kitchen, shiny spaces, using different things to make magnetic things to make the cameras hang. And that's why the cameras had to be light. So that's why the C920 worked beautifully, because I think in the next shot, it's hard to see. I have my teleprompter. It's hard to see. My eyes aren't that great. But I don't know if that was in that shot. There, we had a tripod that had a magnetic bottom that could stick, you know, up and get an overhead shot by the stove, and I could stick that anywhere, which was great. But this was the evolution. You know, we got better lights. We there's a monitor. The first monitor you see, I used that as a confidence monitor, so I could see what was going on. I could see the actual shots. I could tell Mike, who was my camera. I miss him, my camera person, that I wanted to go, like I was doing something, I'd be like, go to shot 2, you know, so while I was actually doing the show. So it was like live directing and producing while I was actually cooking, which was fun. Then next to that is an actual computer that we use ManyCam.
Oh, the iMac.
Which I believe is, the iMac. And that's how Mike would live switch. So this was pre-eCam. I don't even know if eCam was around when I started this. But that other monitor was very helpful because we were live, so I could like see what was going on and answer and respond to questions, because I used to answer questions as I was cooking.
Right.
So this was an evolution. I learned a lot in a very short amount of time because I was trying to make this look good. And I would have loved to have had a dedicated kitchen set, but I did not.
Of course not.
You know, I'm not Martha Stewart. I am. No, I'm not Martha Stewart. But if you can have a space just dedicated, that you just walk in and you can just flip on a switch or you know, make it all work, and you sit down, you turn your camera on, and you just go, that's the best thing in the world. But if you're cooking, or you're teaching yoga, or you're doing something that you can't dedicate a space, then you have to learn how to do your show every week and break it down. And one tip I give is I used to take shots, photos of the set. So I remember where cameras were. So I remember how I changed the backdrop, so the consistency and continuity remained with the show. And if you do have to break it down, take extensive notes. I'll be talking about that later. Take extensive notes, take extensive pictures, so you know where. You know, I used to mark things on the floor, so I knew that light was supposed to be there, and the camera needs to be here, and this is center. So that's what you have to do if you're going to do that.
That's a really good point. I was going to ask you a couple of questions, if I may, just about your the first picture. So when it came to sort of lighting, you mentioned obviously now in kitchens it's typically bright anyway, depending what kitchen you're in, but obviously you've got all these reflective surfaces. So was there any point where you had to sort of change the lighting configuration, or just take some footage first and then look back and say, well, I'm getting like reflections down here, or I'm seeing like a sheen at the back of me or something like that? Because obviously with all these lights going on, I don't know how they do it in professional studio sets, but it's a lot of diffused light, I think, isn't it, when it comes to sort of creating your set like this? So any problems you had to overcome?
Yeah, well, you see the one with the pink shirt on. There was a window behind that, so I kept that closed because you didn't want to be backlit like that. Shiny surfaces, you can spray hairspray or something to dull it down and make it look matte. That's a trick. If you have something super shiny. I did have a kitchen after this kitchen that the tile was so reflective you would see the lights in there.
Oh, right.
And it was
like a mirror.
It was horrible to shoot in. And so that was challenging. So again, I recommend taking screenshots as or taking video and really looking, like, get critical and look at, if you're doing something like this, or even if you're not doing something like this, like, check your background, make sure there's not a Coke can or, you know, something sitting in the back. So I always take a snapshot so I know everything is clean in the way it should be.
Especially if you're doing multiple shots and things, right? Multiple takes. Because you said you were batch shooting. I'm going to ask you a question about that in a second. But like when it comes back to rebuilding that studio from the ground up again, you want it to look similar to last time, so you can have some consistency with your show, right?
Exactly. And it just makes your workflow easier if you have to go that route. You know, you want to do that. So you had another question, you say?
Yeah. So what was my no I've just lost my train of thought. What was my question?
You were talking about batch shooting.
So thank you. So for batch shooting, like a podcast or a show that I do, or, you know, reviews, It's fine. Just get the gear in, just do that. Mark has guests on. We'll talk about that later. But for you, you're cooking different things. So 4 recipes. Do you decide that the recipes have some common ingredients so you don't have to sort of start? So, okay. So you went crazy and just decided to cook things completely different. And what was the time frame for that? How long did you spend batch recording in your studio environment?
On a good day, I could get 3 videos out that were probably 8 to 10 minutes long. Because after you get a system down, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the other thing is that you have to remember to shoot the stills for it, for your thumbnails and for a blog post. So that's a whole other different lighting set. So sometimes after I had finished the finished dish, we'd have to run and go over somewhere else and shoot that still. So I would have it. Otherwise, you're pulling a still from a video, which I never really loved doing. Yeah. Although now with all the different tools we have, it's not, as difficult. But even batching, because with my podcasts, I'll do the interview first and I'll batch the intro that I do after the interview, because that allows me to write what the interview was about. If I try to script it out beforehand, I'm going to miss all the juiciness of it. You know what I'm saying? So, and that applied, I think that applied with the videos for cooking also is sometimes we would shoot and then I at the end go back and talk about something.
Sure.
So it's a lot of it's planning. It's just planning.
I think that's in the important part. And for audio, for you, because obviously you're in a kitchen, it's reflective. It's not the most, treated room in the world. What was your sort of microphone of choice when you first started off in your studio? Was it a lavalier? Oh,
this is pre-Rode, all the cute DJI Rode things they have. Yeah. If I had that, I would have been like so happy. But I had kind of old school. Like if I was on a TV set, I had the thing, remote on my back.
Oh, right. Okay. So at least it was wireless.
It was not. I was wired up through my shirt and it was like I was on it's like what they used to do on television. Right. There wasn't a wireless thing at that time for me to use. So we had to go source that. And it worked. It was fine.
Yeah.
The sound was always fine. I didn't have booms and all that because that would get in the way of the shot.
Well, yeah, because you're moving around as well, and then you've got a cameraman. I mean, fortunately, you have got somebody who's following you. But that's a difficult thing. The coordination of not bumping into each other, not getting the lens all fogged up or steamed up. If you, I mean, there's lots of things to consider.
When we did the live, everything was stationary when we did the live. As I progressed, I started having him just follow me around, which was great. I could be like, come in closer and just, I'm stirring this or whatever. So different iterations and learning a lot. And all of this has applied to any other thing I've done, be it just sitting down like this. There's something I've taken and nothing's wasted. So
I think we have a final shot as well of when obviously the camera was a better quality. You're getting more depth of field now in this particular shot, and obviously things are looking different. But again, I noticed now you've got a reflector here when you've got a light bouncing off it. So, but it's an evolution, and it's a really nice way of showing how over time you just started off with whatever you had available to you, decided to do probably one of the most complicated sort of video shoots, being a cooking show. It's not the easiest thing to get right in the best of times, especially. And obviously you had a very successful channel based on cooking, and this was all around the pandemic time anyway, isn't it? This is pre-pandemic. Before it all kicked off. So it's interesting. And over what period of time then, from when you first started the initial studio setup to what we're seeing now, what time period was that roughly?
2 years, I guess.
2 years, okay. Yeah,
not that long, because I kept wanting to improve and improve and improve it,
Right. And you do start to sort of think about what you're shooting and what works for you, because when you first start off, like anything else, you've got this basic equipment, you're not sure what it's going to look like anyway, and then more importantly, how is it going to make you feel, and how are you going to get on with actually operating it? Because the worst thing in the world is having to have something that is not very good in terms of either setup, inconsistency, you have to keep playing with it, it doesn't work properly, all these sort of technical issues that just get in the way of you being you and creating what you want to create.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said for taking your time with looking at what's there. But if you have nothing to start with, as we've all begun in our sort of humble beginnings with our little studio rooms, whatever it is, then yeah, I think it's important to just take stock of what you have and then increment over time.
And that, that 1% better every time you do it. Like, even if it's something little, tiny, it doesn't have to be any big major thing. That 1%, it adds up. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I like what I have. This is great. So,
well, it's wonderful to see the evolution. If you've got any questions for Lisa or any of us during this, let us know. We do have a couple of comments. I'm just going to go to the comments. And Saeed has joined us. Thank you for joining us, Saeed. And first of all, a question for you, Mark. Will all of Mark's parties be live streamed? That's the big question, Mark. So are you planning to do a live stream to the family? Like a closed sort of, private session?
That's quite fun, isn't it? I quite like that idea. Whether my family would like that, it's another matter.
Well, they don't have to know, do they? That's what secret camera filming is all about, isn't it? Maybe don't tell them. Yes, and then we can just watch it. Yes, Your Honor. Saeed also says that working from a corner of my bedroom from a long period, thanks to camera cropping, nobody notices. And that's a good point. You can have a complete mess around you and you wouldn't even know. And having just worked on a sort of a little studio build last week where, and no disrespect to Michael, he said himself, he's got a lot of stuff around. You don't see that when the camera is pointing at him. And that's just what it's all about. It's whatever makes you feel good and whether you can sort of, work in that environment. And we have one more quick comment from the master himself, King George the First.
Hi, George.
Hey, George. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really nice to see you here.
Yes.
So any other parting words of wisdom on your set, Lisa? Any things you can think of that sort of, was there one piece of tech that let you down that you had to sort of really sort of fix quickly and say, I'm not working with this?
Manicam.
Okay.
I
so
said
what was Manicam for people who
because it would glitch, and then all the cameras you had set, because some of the cameras you had to turn them around to get the shot or do it within the program to make the shot look the right direction. If it glitched, it would cause a camera to go out, and then we had to reset all the cameras. And that happened a couple of times live. So I got to the point, we always had that one shot that Sony cam that it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I could just go there and talk amongst ourselves while Mike would run around and get the cameras going again. And then go back to, it was bad. It was bad. So, your software is just as important as your physical tech and tools. So
definitely
make sure that's on point for whatever you're doing, because that'll slow your flow down.
And one of our future live shows will be looking at all the different types of tools and in particular software that's out there that can be used for either your live streams or your recorded content. So stay tuned for that. But thank you. Yeah, Manicam. Never heard of it, and I don't think I ever want to play with it. Is it still around, by the way? Or does it exist?
I don't know, because it was around Wirecast, Manicam, and OBS was around too, obviously at that point, probably before that. But that was the only way to really have multiple cameras and, hopefully get a show out.
If it works. We have a nice comment from Saeed, basically saying all the Gen Z kids will never understand back in the day when we had to use a C920. I mean, it's true, right? What is a C920? I'd have to actually look that up, actually. But
yeah, that was the camera. That was the webcam everybody recommended, and
Yeah, and Saeed, all the tools, yes, even the ones with 3 letters. Shh. Yes, we're going to be talking about everything. Don't worry about it. We'll include that as well. All right. So next up is the evolution that is Mark Taylor. Mark, take it away. Tell us where you want to start with your, because obviously you started podcasting to start off with, right? Before you moved into the video side of things. So maybe if I just ask a question first, where did you sort of create all your podcasts then? Was this in your spare bedroom, or tell us all about it?
Yeah, so when I started podcasting, all of the kids were still living at home. so we had less spare space. And I think I did, depending on who was where, sort of move around the house a little bit and what time of day it was. If I was recording people in the States, then of course it's late at night, people might have gone to bed, and I was then doing it downstairs. If it was during the day, I'd be upstairs. But the great thing was that with a little bit of kind of beginner training, I sort of knew that having a decent dynamic mic, having it sort of held sort of close up, and just sort of knowing what I was trying to create, I could actually do it with pretty much the same sort of audio across the board. So I didn't the moving around didn't make too much difference. I mean, most of the rooms had carpet, there's curtains, or the rooms aren't too big and there weren't too many sort of shiny surfaces and that kind of thing. So that, and actually being able to sort of have a microphone that I could keep nice and close to, and also because it was audio only, I'd literally use Skype to go on screen to say hello and have that sort of introduction, and then because of bandwidth and internet and that kind of thing, we'd then just go audio only. So it didn't actually matter. I could literally just have my microphone stuck right in front of my mouth, no one knew, and it was all about the sound that I wanted to create in the best possible way, rather than having all the extra things that became an issue obviously once you started then introducing video.
And how did you sort of prep your family to say, look, I'm recording a podcast, could you just like keep it down in the back or something? Because obviously if you're in the room, it's difficult, especially if you're doing it live recording, because then you might have to do a retake if there was some noise. Did that ever become a problem, or how do you deal with that?
Not really. I think because if it was during the day, the kids were often obviously going to be at school, so that's less of an issue. My wife was probably working as well. I think I started sort of coordinating days that people would know that Tuesdays or were going to be my recording days, and I'd have sort of set times. If they were all in the house, then I would say, yes, I am recording, I'm going to be here, and then people would they'd be wary as well. But I think is what we've been talking about today, in terms of there's lots of noise going on generally for all three of us, but with the right understanding and the right sorts of setups, you can kind of sort of negate that as much as possible. So even though there probably was stuff happening around me, it didn't interrupt me enough, certainly to be able to make it too much of an issue. And also editing skills as well. The occasional time taking some background noise out, or something might have happened my end, but because I was able to record on separate tracks, it didn't make any difference. I could take out my noise while my guest was chatting on the other end. So yeah, a few sort of tricks and tips and things that I sort of probably got me out of a few sticky situations, which people just listening to the podcast wouldn't necessarily known about.
Yeah, and I guess that just comes from experience, right? When you're first starting a podcast and you get some glitches, or there might be something that you have to take out, you have either have to go and do some searches, or just work out yourself how to basically edit that. And with there's a lot of people who are just starting off with a podcast or the content creation journey, then that might seem daunting. So back in the day when we didn't have AI, basically it was a bit more manual to be able to sort of go in and sort of make those edits. But nowadays there's lots of tools that can help specifically with that workflow and so on.
And I think also, just going slightly off topic for 1 minute, I really like playing tennis, and one of the things I did, I got together with my wife, we moved to the village that we're in now, and there is a tennis club, and the one thing I decided to do was actually to start by having some lessons rather than just having a go, and it kind of gave me the skill set I needed, that even now, if I haven't played for a little while, I've got things that I can lean on. I know what I'm trying to do to sort of get me back into a good shape of being able to play as well as I ever could, which isn't necessarily a great standard, but you sort of know what I mean. And yeah. I did exactly the same thing in podcasting. I was sort of interested in podcasting. There was a course that I could take, which was a free course at the time. There was a community related to it. So by the time I actually started releasing episodes, even though it was way back and the standard was probably very different than it is now, I did sort of know what I was trying to do it. Yes, I was improving each time I did it, and I was learning on the job to some extent. I knew that I was going to use this software, and I was using it because of this reason, multi-track, for example, or I was going to use Skype but turn off the video because I wanted a better sort of sound, and the extra video would take away some of the bandwidth. So there were things that I already knew about because I'd sort of trained myself within my limited knowledge as best I could, and I had a community around me that was able to help. So those times when you were saying like, this has really gone wrong, but I really need to get this out, there was a Facebook group and a group of people that you could actually ask as well. And so with all the planning and all the training in the world, there's just something really great about having people around that you can ask, you've got your back. It's not, I need to wait a fortnight till the next session or whatever. That just kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow, and just feels very supportive. Fantastic.
So moving on from audio, you then ventured into doing video creation. And I think it's fair to say that your first sort of studio, the room that you had for doing your video production, was the room that you're in right now, but obviously it looked very different. So let's take a look at what Mark's room looked like originally, and you can talk us through what was going on here, basically.
Well, there you are. So we've already spoken about COVID, and this really kind of was that sort of era. So I changed how I was recording my podcast, but it was still audio only at the time. But all of my music lessons and my music related stuff obviously was online rather than going into the physical spaces. And there were things that I needed to get across to parents to sort of help out, give them tips about helping them practice for my pupils and all that kind of thing. So I basically created like 5 or 6 videos, which was kind of here are a few things that you're going to probably need to know and they're going to help you at that time. And so, because when I was doing my podcast originally, I was using call recorder, which is for Skype, which was actually an Ecamm related product. And then Ecamm came out with the streaming and the recording stuff as well. So I'd sort of started playing around with it at that sort of stage. And that's where this came from. So yeah, the look of it, as you can see, it has the same background, a little bit busier. As we've talked about, the C920. Is the camera that I was.
Oh, you're using the C922?
Oh, wow.
Me. Every man and lady was using the C920. We got a comment coming in about that. I should remind you later.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I'm just trying to think about where the height is on there. That might have even actually been an iMac camera, that particular one. But the C920 was when I first got a webcam to use. And so the lighting was no studio lighting at all. You can see there's just like a battery operated kind of looking thing at the back.
There's here,
there. I just had some normal sort of house reading lamps which I put on the floor behind me, and the one in front I think was might have been a ring light. There's nothing more than that. Might have even been one of the house lights just sort of facing just in front of me, going in that direction. And so I was sort of limited to what was available, and also what was possible as well, because I remember sort of having to start to put things on books and things and get the different heights and where you're going to pan things, and before you suddenly got a million stands and that kind of thing. And because it was sort of COVID related, you couldn't get some certain things because they were out of stock, and you had to wait for all of that to start to go in as well. But like we said, there's no better time to do these things than now. So I thought at the time, he really cared. I wanted to do as good a job as I could, and you can see I'd got a few sort of overlays there, which I think was from live streaming pros at the time. And this, this looks very different than anything else that I could see during COVID and around that time, because it was just people doing Zoom or whatever version they were doing, Google Meets or whatever. So at the time, I was really loving it, and had all these things I could bring up and make it look. At the time, I thought looked really nice.
Well, the thing is, though, it's
gradually progress over time.
It's very different, though, isn't it? Like you said, the typical Zoom where you're looking at people's noses, or they're like either down here or they're completely cut off and something. It was just people weren't prepared for, well, goodness me, I'm going to have to go on a Zoom call now, and whatever Zoom was back in the day, because people didn't really know what Zoom was. People have heard of Skype. Yes, now I have to present myself, we have to talk to people, and you're not maintaining eye contact, your laptop's down here, your camera's in a different place. Nobody understands about lighting. They just sort of go and get connected with their laptop, and that's it, basically. And I noticed, and I'm very surprised that there's no reflections here at all on your glasses. So, like, well done for like either getting a light where you're not getting the reflections, because there's nothing worse than wearing glasses and then there's all these crazy lights on there, and it's quite distracting for everybody else. So you did a great job with what you had available to you at the time, considering if you weren't using proper lighting.
I knew about the sort of the 45 degrees to the side and up and that kind of thing. And so, there were certain things that I was aware of in whichever way that happened to be. So it's sort of fascinating, sort of how quickly it changes as well. From that to then creating more videos and doing an online summit for somebody, and the fact that you start to use the tools that you have for other things. Before I then started live streaming for my podcast and making the video important as my podcast as well, because that sort of almost came towards the end, just because I kind of felt it was a good evolution time to do that. I was sort of at this stage was just sort of messing around with it and having a lot of fun and doing whatever I could to sort of help people.
And that's the main thing, right? If it's enjoyable what you're doing, it doesn't really matter too much about what it looks like. That just gets better over time. And I just want to do a quick compare and contrast. So this is Mark how he was, and this is Mark now. So I mean, it's just amazing the difference: a camera, lighting, placement, and just all these things that you've learned over time that can make a huge difference and an impact in that. I mean, it's just amazing to see the sort of the changes. So talk us through maybe a little bit about your workflow now. So there's a couple of things that you may not be able to live without when it comes to doing your sort of day-to-day podcasting. And for people who have joined us, a couple of new people on the show today, those are people who are here that don't know about you and sort of what you've created over time. Just let people know about your podcast and how you actually get that working now.
Yeah, so the podcast started at the end of 2016. And the first tool that I realized was worth every penny and its weight in gold was Calendly, so that I could actually schedule and book guests. Because when I first started the podcast, I had half a dozen people who were kind of friends or people acquaintances who agreed to come on the show, and then you have that email bounce, kind of, okay, when are you free? I've got a couple of days next week I can do, and I can do 10 o'clock. Oh no, I can't do 10 o'clock. I'll do 11. I can't do that now. And I was like, I can't be doing this because this is part of my working week. It's not part of everything. And so I looked around for various tools, and Calendly was the one that kind of fitted the bill. It wasn't overly priced. It was I needed something simple that I could make work really well, and because I've sort of got 3 parts to my career. I'm still a working performing musician. I've got my sort of music educator kind of hat that I do within that as well, and then I've got the podcasting and all that, which I sort of do now. So they sort of fit into sort of 3 sort of camps equally now. And so I needed to sort of have different diaries for different things, and I needed to make sure that they talked to each other when they needed to and that sort of thing. But I didn't want it to be so complicated. I needed to spend weeks and weeks kind of working it out as if I was my own PA with various things as well. And this is the one that I came on. And so it just absolutely revolutionized my life. It's like I need to spend an hour every few months, and I literally say I'm going to be recording on this day at these times for however long I wanted to set it up, either into the future indefinitely, or I normally do it sort of 3 months out, and it might be Mondays between this time and this time. I was able to fit it between doing school runs and other bits of work that I had, and then that was it. All I then needed to do was just to create the link, send it to the people that were then getting in touch about being a guest, and then it would all just happen. I was able to get them to fill out various fields so that I had their bios, maybe some artwork, pictures, information about their websites, whatever it is they wanted to talk about as well. And it was all in Calendly, so I can just bring it all up. Helps me when I'm then doing the interview. I've obviously scheduled it, so I know I'm going to be doing it, and also it's there for me when I needed to do the show notes and all the stuff post-interview as well. So yeah, it's a tool that works really well for me. There's other versions around, but this one kind of really sort of fitted in the slot, did everything I wanted it to do without it being too complicated at the time.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I mean, I discovered it a couple of years ago as well, because I was in the same position, this back and forth, and it's fine if you're in a corporate environment where you're connected via Outlook and Exchange and you can see other people's calendars and stuff. But yeah, trying to schedule something like guests and stuff, nightmare. So yeah, Calendly is great. And just talk about the other one that you use on a regular basis for your podcast syndication, I guess.
The other tool, so Captivate is the tool that I use for my hosting. Originally, it was called Podcast Websites, and the reason that I went for it was that it was set up by Mark Asquith, who's actually a Brit, and the idea of it was the fact that it actually was a WordPress website, and the hosting sort of fitted around it. So I was like, great, I'm starting out. I want a website. I can have it as an all-in-one kind of package, and you could actually create the website you wanted. And it was sort of revolutionary kind of at the time, and it was someone that I was able to sort of relate to because they were a Brit, and it was just the right time at the right place. And Captivate is the same company. It's just that they sort of moved from the sort of the website. The website is the kind of the real focus to the actual properly hosting it themselves, using this new tool, which was Captivate. And they now all talk to each other as well. So the website talks to Captivate and the hosting, and it all works seamlessly. And so there I can do all my show notes. You can use it for booking service as well now these days. It's where I do everything related to the podcast, and it's the greatest tool recently is the fact it's now got an AI component. So that's, as much as anything, saved lots of time in terms of being able to do your show notes, create title ideas and all that sort of stuff. And like with any AI, you know, it needs a little bit of tweaking and then make sure that you look over it, but it's a real game changer from a time point of view, which I think for so many of us, if you're time poor when you're putting a lot of content together, it's been really fantastic.
And I forgot to ask you a very quick question about your original podcast setup. So what was the microphone that you used when you originally started?
Originally, and I still use it, not day to day, but I've got two of them because I also wanted to be able to do some remote things as well. I've got an ATR 2100. I think I'm not sure they exist anymore. I think it's a 2100X now.
Is that an Audio Technica?
And,
Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic. It sounds really good. I think it was definitely less than £100. And I knew that because my podcast is an education related one, I'll probably be going to conferences and events and that kind of thing. So I bought two of them, and I bought a Zoom H4, I think I've got. Mm-hmm. And I knew that way I could use it as an interface, or I could just plug them, because they're USB as well, straight into my computer. But it also meant if I was going to go to an event, I had a recording device as well, which I could plug the mics to. And it was brilliant. I did lots of live things like that. And the only reason I actually changed microphones before I got to meet you guys and started learning much more about all those sorts of things is because I got bought this Rode one here. I got bought as a birthday present for my kids, which is fantastic, and I love it. It has a great sound. But I wasn't looking to upgrade from a sound point of view. It was because that original ATR 2100 actually still sounds great and did sound great, and I really enjoyed it.
And I think one of the things about microphones is they don't really get worse over time. And there's not that many technological advances with microphones. They're pretty basic in terms of how they're constructed. And I think, the microphones that I've got here, this has been, 1960s it first came out, something like that, the SN7B or something crazy. So, there's a lot of tech that's still going strong and people still use today. So, yeah. What's the old adage? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You don't necessarily have to upgrade everything all the time.
It's a really interesting point, that, because I also talk about getting another microphone just because I can, and it would mix things up. But it's kind of buying what you need. I mean, if you've got loads of money to buy whatever you like, then that's one thing. But I went down the route of what is it that's actually going to help me now. So actually having a mobile wireless mic that I could use with my phone or my laptop meant that opened up a different way of recording as and when I needed to do it. And also the fact I didn't always want to have a microphone here, because I'm not always podcast recording. If I want a Zoom meeting or I want to have a conversation with someone, I still want the sound to be great, but I don't necessarily need to sort of have this sort of microphone this close in that kind of way. And relatively recently I bought the Rode Interview Pro. We'd used them on one of our live shows when we were together in Boston, and that was a game changer in terms of going to events, because being able to record in 32-bit float and having it just with me and just literally being able to just sort of hand it over was really good. No wires, nothing to worry about, and that gave me an added advantage on what I had already. So while I'd love to maybe go and get a different Shure mic and those sorts of things, which would be really great to have because they're really lovely mics, I don't actually need it in terms of what I'm doing. So that sort of comes further down the line if you've got other things that you want to improve within your studio. I
love that, because what you're saying is, on these Zoom calls and other things, you don't have to have broadcast quality sound on a Zoom call if you're just having a chat. So it's not necessary. And sometimes you want to have the freedom of being able to use maybe something wireless. Like I really don't like having wired headphones, but I use them because obviously we want to make sure that the quality of the show is as good as we can get and I can hear you guys properly. But I'd much rather just pop in a pair of wireless headphones and things like that. It might make things a bit easier. But anyway, well, thank you so much for talking us through your studio setup. It's interesting how incrementally over time you've added many things, but also kept some of the stuff that you've had for a while. And up until recently, I mean, you've still been using your Zoom H4, haven't you, for all your sort of outdoor recordings and on-site tutorials that you do for podcasting, and that's been sort of
absolutely, and I still use it as an interface often as well. And I mean, apart from that, as we said, just getting the Sony camera obviously made a difference from a visual point of view. Some coloured lights I was able to use around and a key light there sort of made the whole look different. But that really came partly from necessity, but partly because we started doing our show, and I got all this great information and insight and knew what I was trying to do and was able to sort of piece that together. And so there is a sort of a time and a place and a need and a will, and then from there you sort of build into what you want.
Wonderful. And I notice your light has disappeared from here now, so that's a shame you've retired that, but that's fine. That's gone now.
I think the battery died.
Did something. But, all right. Well, let's go to some comments because we have a few coming in. Let me go all the way back up here. So Jordan says, hi Jordan, thanks for joining us. The C920 is a wicked piece of kit responsible for many YouTubers' careers now. I know, I guess that was the staple camera for everybody, right? I think that must have passed me by. I think I was in the Panasonic camp, which I'll talk to you about in a minute when it comes to my sort of setup. But the C920, no, I didn't really see that.
It was an entryway in with a webcam without going into a mirrorless, right. And it was fine.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there was a number of cameras out of stock when COVID happened. That was one of them, right? I think that was one of the set of cameras that sort of disappeared or was just out of stock. Saeed says, I'd love to place my desk so I'm sitting in the corner, but my OCD is having a hard time with it. Here's my advice to you. People don't like change. Try it. When you're having a day where you're not having to record anything, have a cup of coffee in the morning, just tweak and change your desk around. But do what Lisa says. Take pictures first of your original setup, because there's nothing worse than when you try to put it back. You have no idea where it is. And it's quite interesting, actually, you mentioned about the can of Coke in the background. It just reminds me of, I think it was the last or the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones where they had a Starbucks card.
Starbucks.
Yeah. I didn't know they had that at that time, but there you go. Starbucks has been around for a while. A couple of more comments. Hello, Matt. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Greetings indeed. He does say that podcasts for the win. Podcast fan there, Mark. Definitely. Matt also says that his C920 is still going strong. It won't stop working. Do you want it to stop working? Are you trying to break it? Saeed also says that he has his C920 as a desk cam for trying stuff out. I mean, if it's a cam that still goes, then why not? And Matt says that my mic is the same tech that was around in 1966. Oh, the Heil.
Heil.
Sorry, Heil. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Heil, whatever you want to say.
Heil. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. All right. Wonderful stuff. Let me just get rid of that comment there. Just all these buttons.
I think also that sense of using what you've got is really important, because you might not need to go and spend loads of money on a second cam or a third cam. Nope. But sometimes you just need a second shot or a second something, and so why go and spend a load of money on another camera? Like, say, if it just needs to do a job, whether it's just an overhead or an unboxing or something like that, it's there's no need.
Plus, with certain software, you can enhance the quality of the picture. So if you need to brighten it or adjust the color of it, so that wasn't around back in the day.
No. So Snapcam may have been around, but you didn't want that type of images on there. So Snapcam stuff.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, you just use. I've still got an iPhone 13, old phone, and it using NDI or some other app, Camo, for example, Shoot. All these type of apps are available that you could just use as a secondary camera or your primary camera, and especially with Camo, where you can do a little bit of depth of field without it being fuzzy and things like that. It's a really good option. So there's many things out there to play around with. Right, I'll just talk a little bit about where I started. I've never pressed this button before. Oh, look at that. So where did I start? So I originally started my YouTube journey back in 2012, I'm going to have to go back. Let me think. Hang on. 2008, actually, when I had this stupid idea of creating a little YouTube channel called Old Gold Tech, which I'm not going to share here today, but you can go and look it up if you want. And it was me and a friend who decided to talk about retro technology. And that wasn't really a studio environment per se. It was more like sitting on, well, I guess it was sitting on a couch or going outside to a car boot sale and seeing what old tech we could buy. So a lot of it was a mixture of sort of roving reporting and being indoors and stuff like that. But I wanted to really sort of, park that for many other reasons and start a new channel all about camera gear and vlogging and just my journey into sort of this content creation stuff. So my sort of setup really started with me just working in my spare room in the house, which was my office at the time because I was doing IT consultancy. So I was doing a lot of work from home remotely, but also it was doubling as a studio. So one side was my sort of desk area with a monitor, and then I just flip round and have a camera set up. So let me just go to the present piece and I kind of remember where my stuff is now. So this is my setup, and I don't know who that guy is, but that was me back in the day. And the only thing I had available to me was, from a lighting perspective, was one small light similar to what you had, Lisa, that little square light, the one that took the battery on the back. So that was my first original setup. And down here, this orange hue light and the Smurf in the corner was all Philips Hue. The dreaded Philips Hue lights that we tell everybody not to use, because what do Philips Hue lights do? They flicker.
They flicker,
because they're not good. They're not good video lights. So unfortunately, there was a lot of flickering going on. But the camera that I was shooting this on, I'd invested and saved up and bought a Panasonic GH4. So that was my first ever camera. So it was a Micro Four Thirds camera. So it wasn't full frame. It wasn't APS-C. It was one below that. So it had a very small sensor, but it was a really sort of decent camera. It had tons of, I guess, cinematic type of features on it where you could control everything from a manual perspective. And I really wanted to learn cameras and get into the manual settings, because I was one of these people that would buy a little point and shoot camera and then just put everything on auto and just, snap away like a crazy person, and then wonder why my photographs don't look like those on, magazines and things like that. So you think, okay, well, now it's time to learn the manual settings and stuff. So I really sort of forced myself to learn how this camera was working. But obviously, not everything was set up right. You can see that there's lots of dark shadows on this side of the face. Maybe I was going for the dramatic Rembrandt sort of lighting look. I don't know. But there's obviously quite harsh lighting here as well. And I didn't have any other lights in my room. I had an overhead light in my office, but I switched that off. There's actually a window light here with a blind. So I sort of moved that down. And I can't even remember what microphone I'm using, because I'm not using a lavalier. I think it was actually just a little one of those cheap Rode shotgun mics that just sits on top of the camera. Because when I played this video back, it does sound like I'm in a bathroom, even though there was a carpet in this room. So it wasn't typically the best thing. And obviously, framing wise, I've got a picture of, Scream. It was a picture that I think my wife actually painted a copy of the Scream painting behind me. One chair, two monitors, a phone, and that was it. And there was nothing really else in this room. So lighting wise, I didn't have any concept of lighting. I didn't really know how to light myself properly. I mean, obviously the content was stellar, but the visuals wasn't very good at all. So obviously there's a lot of things that had to be changed there. So, I mean, just looking at this setup now, it does bring back memories of how on earth did that ever work? And the other thing that the Panasonic GH4 did do terribly was autofocus. So the autofocus was awful. So I remember, to your point, Lisa, marking on the floor with a little piece of tape, 2 X's where the 2 points of my chair that I'm sitting on would go. And then once I got that sorted, I would just then manually focus and get me as sharp as possible, and then be rigid for the next 20 minutes I was talking to camera, because any movement would make me go out of focus, even though I'd set the aperture to be at least a reasonable size, so it wouldn't be too razor sharp focus and narrow depth of field. But it wasn't the best. So that I do remember that fondly, not moving too much. And it does make you think about, like, were you actually going to sit and maybe setting up your camera properly and then just making sure that you're always in that same position. So to your point about taking photographs, marking the floor, and then for consistency, just making sure you're in the same position each time, which I never was, because invariably I'd run over the tape, it'd move or something, and then I'd like, well, where did I actually sit? And then I have to go back to YouTube and check these things out. But you know, first world problems, not knowing where to put your seat. But that was basically my setup, how it originally came to pass. And so a couple of recommendations I have for people who are starting out now with basically nothing. We've said before that you could actually start off with your iPhone camera if you wanted, but there's a couple of cameras that I recommend that everybody knows and loves, and the picture's all skewed up here, so let me just move it into the right position. Oh, come on, why do you keep moving? I have to fix that. Anyway, this is the OBSBot Meet 2. It's the next to the cheapest OBSBot camera. They have a Meet SE, I think. They keep on coming out with cameras, and it's a bit confusing. But this is the OBSBot Meet 2. I think it was retailing for around $100 or something like that. And it's a really good high-quality 4K webcam, and it is literally plug and play. You just plug in the USB-C on the back, and you can see it's on my laptop. I actually have a better picture here if I just get rid of this and put this one here. So the camera's actually mounted here just on top of the laptop, and this is just a basic little studio setup I'd worked out for doing a LinkedIn Live course, but I just wanted to show you that the basic setup, this whole kit just with this camera here and this light, which I think is $60. This microphone is $50, I think, and then the Stream Deck. But at the basic level, I could light up this particular setup with one light, a little bit of window light here coming in. Just be careful if it changes, because you're going to have different lighting changes on your face. But overall, it was a really, really basic setup, and this is what I'd recommend to anybody get now who's just starting off. Even if you just get the Meet 2 camera, it's pretty good with what available light you've got, and it's going to look a whole lot better than the webcam that you get on most laptops. Even the newer Mac laptops are okay, but they're still, I don't think, as good as a dedicated webcam. Even I think the C920 would probably give the MacBook camera a run for its money. Even today, I think it would even still look pretty reasonable with some decent lighting. So anyway, that's where I sort of started with my setup, and people have so much choice now. I think it's amazing how much choice you do have with what's available to you in terms of cameras and things like that. So let me just go back to the comments before we move on to our next thing. Right, so Saeed says, any suggestions for a behind-the-scenes cam that doesn't involve 50 meters of USB cables, which is a lot in feet? If you've got a phone, and I think it supports Android and iPhone, then have you thought about just buying the app, which is NDIX camera, which is basically getting your video image over your Wi-Fi, no wires at all. And if you just want to hang it up to one side, if you've got a fully charged battery, then you can bring an NDI feed into OBS without a problem. So I think that would be one option, unless you guys have got other options. I think like the OBSBot camera's got one cable, but obviously you still need to cable it. Even cameras that use power over Ethernet, like the Tail Air and the Tail 2, all require some form of cabling. But if you want to have something that's completely wireless, then maybe your phone is an option. Or you could go for the more expensive OBSBot, which has got a battery in it, like the Tail Air has got a battery and it's NDI. So you could mount that and not have any cables for a while. It depends as well. He's got some more comments. He says the rectangle desk mat on the round table is killing me. I know. In that shot that we had before, I didn't have a round desk mat. Sorry, I think he's referring to this. It's a square or an oblong desk mat on a round table. It's all I had, Saeed. It's all I had. I should have just cropped in here, and maybe then you would maybe not have noticed. But yeah, yes. So I can see. I can feel your pain. Go ahead.
Do you have a still of what that looked like from the recording behind?
Yes.
We're sort of seeing your setup looking forward. Have you got the reverse of that?
Oh, the reverse of my original. You mean of this? Oh, you mean the one with the studio setup? You mean this one?
Yeah, so that was for your LinkedIn live.
Yeah, I do have some. I don't have it available, but I can post it somewhere.
No, I was just wondering whether maybe we could stick it on Instagram or put it in Substack, and people can see what that looks like.
I can show you.
The other side, yeah.
I'll just get rid of the square mat though, just for Saeed's sanity more than anything.
Yeah.
So he also said that he wants to put something fixed in the corner of the room. No spur phone. Ooh, well, I think it would be like an OBSBot. Or something. I'm just trying to think of. There's a couple of other.
HubSpot's probably the best bet.
Yeah, there is a Nearstream, but that's not a battery on that, so you'd have to put a USB on there or something. He also says he doesn't trust people who set any device on presets or auto mode. Well, yeah, you wouldn't have hired me as a wedding photographer back in the day. I'd be like, oh yes, auto, everybody looks great. But there you go. All right, let's. I can't believe it's nearly 9 o'clock already. So the other thing we were just gonna talk about real quick is that things you should consider in your studio environment and sort of various things in terms of what can we, if we just picked one thing right now, putting everybody on the spot, what was the one thing that changed your environment to make things look or sound a whole lot better? What was the thing that you added that sort of really made a difference to your video? I'll start with, well, I'll go and let you guys think about it. So the one thing that made a big difference for me is lighting. So just having a softbox light just really elevated how it looked in terms of me being more sort of front and center, giving me much more flattering light on my face compared to sort of harsh lighting, which I had these little small LED lights, as I mentioned. And it took me a while to figure that out. I watched a lot of videos and experimented with how the look and feel was based on what it was looking like in camera. Because I don't know about you, when you're filming yourself, the actual end result, when you play it back, is not always what you think it looks like in your mind. So it's always nice to see a playback of what it looks like to everybody else who you're going to be posting on and posting to your specific channels than just watching in a confidence monitor, because it doesn't always give you the right sort of view, especially if your confidence monitor doesn't have the right color temperature, and you could be, have a lot of different color shifts and things like that, which I've seen before. Mark, do you have one thing that you could...
Yeah, so mine's going to be lighting as well, and mine are the Godox lights I've got behind me, mainly because I wanted to have a bit of colour. I wanted the option for the colours to change, so even now you can probably see I can actually change the lighting as we go.
Yep.
And so whatever colour you need, whether it's branding, so that sort of yellowy colour is sort of branded to my podcast, but then we used it differently when we were doing our show. And so I love those. They're not massively expensive, and to have that, and even the light that's just on the floor behind me is relatively bright, just to get a little bit of sort of highlight on the white wood. But I can change the colour of that as well as in when I want to. So yeah, that was the main thing, just to give a little bit of perspective, a little bit of difference, and to be able to have some control over the colour and a little bit more sort of depth to what was available.
Very good. Lisa?
I would have to say the Stream Deck for me, because not only does it work if you're using Ecamm or whatever program you're using to do live switching, but just your basic workflow. And I didn't mention one of my favorites is Notion as far as workflow. Yeah. So I have all of my things I love, which is, if I were to recommend 3, it would be Notion, Descript, and Riverside. And I can just on my, Stream Deck, just bop around and get to where I need to get, have, do lighting, do all kinds of things with it, which is great. So Stream Deck definitely changed everything. I do wish I had the pedal back in the day when I was doing my cooking show, because I could have been, pressing and changing scenes while I was cooking. I could have. It would have been fun. But Stream Deck is my call.
Good call.
Yeah.
Good call. Right. So speaking of tools and things like that, we have a new section with no music. It's called Tool of the Week. And it's whatever we think has been helpful. So many connotations. Whatever we think could be helpful to content creation and just making your life a little bit easier. It's all about these little incremental quality of life improvements that help you along the way and not make you go crazy when you're trying to do your content. So tool of the week. Lisa, you've been using a tool today.
Yes.
Maybe to explain a little bit about why you're using it and what's going on in your world.
Yeah, in my world is chaos and mayhem, but all good. Chaos and mayhem. I'm moving house, as y'all say over there on the other side of the pond. Is that what you say? Moving house.
Moving house. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I think generally you just say moving house, but what do you say in the US then? I'm out of here.
I moved.
Okay. All right. It's a bit more direct, I guess, but there you
go.
Yeah,
there's a little construction going on, so you can't hear it, but there's banging, there's sawing, there's yelling, there's music. And so thank heavens for Crisp, KRISP, that it basically takes away all the background noise, so you can still do your show, guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have heard all the construction and everything going on.
And Crisp is just a plugin, isn't it? It's available
a plugin,
for,
yeah.
Is it Windows and Mac? I can't remember.
I think it's Windows and Mac. It's good. It goes across Zoom. It goes across Facebook. It goes across different platforms. Works. I have Ecamm running right now, so since we're on Zoom and Ecamm, it's all working for me fine. There's an app that can be downloaded on your phone as well as to desktop, which is great. Cool. And I turned it off, but it will take notes and, do recordings of everything. So you have that. But my main purpose was so you didn't have to hear my construction, my madness, my mayhem. All good.
Wonderful. All right. Mark, do you have something that you've been playing with or something that's the tool of the week for you that you could impart your knowledge on our wonderful listeners?
Yeah, so my first one was going to be Neil, but then we'll assume that we'll move on.
I don't have that.
But I'm pumped. No, where's that?
Yeah. I can't
you
play
can't play it.
No. I've been called.
But I'm gonna. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna say.
Oh yes.
My little Lark 2, Honeyland Lark 2. The main reason that I've got that and to play with that was I never really needed a microphone that I could use out of the studio, so to speak. Because if I was doing stuff on the move, I'd just use my mobile. I wouldn't even have anything plugged in. It'd literally just sort of be face to camera. And then I'd had a few things that I wanted to do outside, and I ended up then taking my Zoom H4 and plugging in a couple of cables and using a normal microphone. And it just got a bit ridiculous when I was trying to walk around, trying to do all these things. It did work, but it was a real kind of workaround. And so I was then looking for a wireless microphone that just made life easy, and that was the one. And I can literally just plug it into the bottom of my phone, and then it's wireless. And then the little microphone that you can either put on is a magnet. It's got like a little sort of string necklace, which works really well, especially if you're putting it on and off other people. You can plug it into your laptop and you can do it. I've recorded directly into there as well. Fantastic. And it was on a deal. So it was the best package they've got with all those different versions of stuff. And it was just over $100 or something like that. So not only does it solve a massive problem, it's sort of inexpensive as well. And the sound quality, really, really good.
Yeah, it's really good. And I love mine as well. I got mine bought for a birthday present, I think. And I've never looked back. I've used it all the time for just... on the Zoom calls and things like that. Again, it's just that freedom and it's super easy. There's a couple of comments come in before I go to my tool of the week, but thank you for that, Mark. Yeah. Hello, Jill. Thank you so much for joining us. We're coming to the end of the show, but if you've got any questions or if you've got a tool of the week that you want to share, let us know. Drop it in the comments. Matt says... he hasn't got a question, but the biggest impact for him has been his Rodecaster Pro. Yeah, I mean, it's a great device, especially if you're doing mixing and you do audio and music and different sort of sound inputs. It's a really good device. And Jordan has an interesting question for us. So putting us all on the spot here, is there anything that you've added to your studio that didn't live up to the hype? Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Good question.
That is a good question.
That's a good question.
We can ponder that for a minute. I may have something, but I'll just talk about my tool of the week while you guys are maybe thinking about something that you purchased.
I know what.
Okay, all right. We'll come to you in a moment.
Go on, sorry. Is it the Rode Streamer X?
Oh,
remember
the Rode Streamer X.
I try as I may.
Did you have one? Did you get one?
I had one because I thought, oh, that's cool. I can do, it's compact, blah, blah, blah. And reached out to them to get, I like Rode products, but reached out to them to get information. I could just never get it to work.
Yeah.
And so I watched 10,000 videos. I'm exaggerating, but I watched a lot of videos and talked to people, and the workarounds didn't work. So I don't know if it was just my, human error, but I wasn't the only one that was experiencing some of the stuff I had. So I would say that.
Yeah, because it was a great idea, built-in HDMI capture card, little mixing desk, great for streamers, plug and play, never worked properly. I mean, I saw, like you, so many comments and problems.
Yeah.
One of my customers, bless him, bought one, said he's going back. I can't deal with this. And he just got rid of it.
Yeah.
And bought a Rodecaster Duo, I think, or something like that. But one of the bigger ones. Yeah. And it's a shame because it's a good concept. And
it's it would plug, but it wouldn't play.
Yes.
Wouldn't play with me.
Interesting. So
yeah,
comments are coming in, and then I'll go to you, Mark. So Jill was saying she's time with that right now only because she had 2 faulty ones, using one now but only taking the audio stopped. See, that's interesting, right? They're just unreliable, I think, which is a shame because Rode's got some good gear, but I'm not sure if their build quality is all that. Let's put it that way. I can't remember if I've already come to you as not Mark. I'm all over the place now. I've been sort of sidetracked by questions.
So
anyway,
Mark, I was gonna say, following on from Jordan's you guys probably don't know Jordan, but Jordan is someone who I know because he's done videos and does some editing for my podcast and various things. So he's someone from my world.
Wonderful.
And does a fantastic job. But I take the Apple approach to gear, which is I wait and see what everyone starts to develop, and in this particular world I wait and see what the two of you use and works very well, and you've worked out how it works, and then I decide to buy it after that, knowing that I can set it up, I know the gear works, and I've got friends in high places who can help me use it. So I've not had anything which doesn't really work because I tend to get gear which I know has been tried and tested by your good selves. So yeah, so I've been quite fortunate thus far, I have to say.
Oh,
were you guinea pigs?
Yeah, so like you just test it if it doesn't work or whatever. I think for me, I wouldn't say it was something that I originally planned to have in the studio, even though it's in there now. But back in the days when gear acquisition syndrome was just a 3-named acronym for petrol, I ended up buying myself a Rhino slider, and it's basically a little motorized travel slider. It's about 2 feet long, and it's by a company called Rhino, who are famous for doing sort of high-end sliders, but they brought this travel one out. I remember buying it when I was in the UK. I still have a video on my channel about it because I was so excited when it finally turned up. And the funny story is it turned up, but like everything else you get from the US, you have to pay a customs charge. So this kind DHL man turned up in his van and said, "Here's your product. By the way, I need 89 quid for." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, I want some money. He's the pro forma that you have to fill in. I'm like, "I don't have any money on me, And he said, "I can't take card. I need cash." So I hopped in his DHL van and we went round the corner to the ATM machine whilst he watched me. It was like a drug deal. I got money out, handed it to him, and he gave me my product. Anyway, that aside, I got this slider, set it all up, went to Canada on a holiday, used it once, and it sat in the corner for 5 years after that. And then I thought to myself, this poor thing is sitting here. Do I sell it or can I repurpose it and put it in my studio? So now it's in my studio and I have a second camera on there, so it gives me a nice little sliding cinematic sort of flow to when I'm doing sort of video tutorials and things like that. And it's a nice way of having a different camera angle that's not necessarily static. So not necessarily for the studio, but that was a regret. So I spent all this money and all the import duty and I've only used it once. But that's what happens, right? When you think it's a good idea and it's going to level up your videos. No, gear doesn't level up your videos. You do.
You do.
You do.
And can I just make a comment on the whole gas thing? And Jill will know this, and all the ECAM people watching, because Alec Johnson, who couldn't get more gear in his studio if he at all was possible, has now recently moved and has decided that he needs 3 rooms that he needs to fill out. So now he's got a real reason to get even more gear as well. So once you get to the point where you think you've got enough, you just need to increase the number of rooms and what you're going to produce, and then you can keep going. So a big shout out to Alec and
room acquisition syndrome. That's what he's dealing with right now. So he's got this a new term that we've just trademarked that. Just a few more comments, then I'll quickly tell you about my tool of the week, and then it will be time to go to bed. So Jill says that it sounds like Mark has more patience than Lisa and Neil. I think he has. He's a very patient man. He'll wait and then look at us struggle, pull our hair out, swear, and send stuff back and say, "I'm not buying that." That's exactly what Mark will do. Yeah. Matt says, didn't live up to the hype. GoPro as a webcam. Ugh, no. As a webcam, no. Terrible. They're great action cameras, but very flaky as a HDMI webcam. Do not recommend. Yeah. Did I tell you the story that I've lost my GoPro 10 and can't find it anywhere? Anyway, it's another story. Jill says she knows all about gas. Just going to leave it at that. And then Matt also says DHL cash payments at the door. That's sketchy.
Sketchy.
He did give me a form later saying there's the import charge. But yeah, it does sound a bit... Thinking about it now, yeah, he probably wanted a nice meal for him and his wife or something. So.
And is this when you were still in the UK before?
Yeah, I was still in the UK. Yeah, so I had to pay the import duty, and yeah, he just came round to the house and said, "Oh, mate, I need some money from you." I'm like, "Okay, let's give you some money then, because that's what I do on a Friday night because I want me Rhino slider to play with." Anyway, going back to tool of the week. For me, the tool of the week is very simple. It's the latest beta version of the Elgato Stream Deck software. And if you've not heard about it or played with it, I've seen it. I've done a little video on the channel about it, but it's basically a virtual Stream Deck. And all it means is, yes, we've got a Stream Deck for the phone. We've got the physical streams that we've talked about. And as Lisa mentioned, she couldn't leave home without her Stream Deck because it's very important in terms of using it for her workflow. But now they've got a virtual Stream Deck version. I can't show you here right now, but there is a video around about it, and just go and search online and find other people's reviews. But basically it gives you a whatever size you want Stream Deck on your desktop. So use cases might be seeing how many people are watching your live stream, some various clocks. You can, all these buttons are fully actionable, just like a traditional physical Stream Deck. There's no difference between it. The good thing is that you can have multiple ones all over every desktop that you have. You can color code them, you can change the shape of them, the size of them, and so on. You can have very small keys, large keys, whatever you want. So I think it's a really useful addition. The only caveat is you have to have a physical Stream Deck to be able to even open and use a virtual Stream Deck. And I got a few comments on my channel saying, well, that's a dumb idea. Why don't they just let me pay for it instead? Because you can pay for a mobile Stream Deck app to use with the Stream Deck application. But for this virtual Stream Deck, you have to have any one of the physical Stream Decks. And I think a pedal. If you've got a pedal, you could use it. And I think it's just from a licensing perspective. They don't want you to pay for it, but they sort of do want you to pay for it because they're asking you to buy a physical Stream Deck. Madness. But that's the way it is. But that's, yeah. Anyway, that's my tool of the week. All right. Let me just see if there's any other questions and comments. It's been a fun show today.
Some music for that.
Sorry, I know we need to get tool. We need some big drums or something, Mark. Tool of the week. So Saeed says, I heard you need to connect the Stream Deck every 30 days. What? That's an interesting point, Saeed. I did not know that about the virtual Stream Deck. Madness. Balmy. And Jill says the only time she used her GoPros as webcams was for fun behind-the-scenes cameras at hockey games, but had to have it plugged in to power 24/7. Yes. So, Saeed, don't use a GoPro, even though it's a battery. I don't think it even does any sort of NDI or HDMI stuff anyway. It does HDMI, but not NDI. I think for Saeed, I think we all recommend an OBS-bot of some kind. And you can get an OBS-bot with a battery in it, which has got NDI, but you need to buy the NDI license, which is another pain, and that's $100 from OBS-bot if you need to buy an NDI license. I would just go and buy an old phone or something, or repurpose something else. Is there anything else you could use as an overhead webcam? I'm just thinking. Yeah, you might have to repurpose your...
The wireless thing is the thing.
Yeah, it has to be wireless, that's all.
Well, what is the camera? It just blanked. Continuity camera.
Yeah, on the phone.
Your phone will allow you to do that, correct?
Right. I don't think he's got a spare phone, though, unfortunately. I think he's looking for like a brand new sort of device of some kind. There are lots of, there's lots of IP webcams out there, but you still need to plug them in some way, shape or form. I think you'll just need something with a battery. Let us know if you find something.
Yeah.
Interested to know what you have.
Yeah. And Jill's done lots of kind of on location stuff with some of the things she did with her educational work and live events and things. So yeah, she's a good person to maybe have an idea of that multi-cam setup, even maybe not wireless, but certainly in terms of that sort of more produced look in that kind of real world environment.
Breaking news from Saeed. He said he just looked up the NDI OBSBot models. I think he'd probably rather buy a long USB cable. Well, there you go. Well, then the Meet 2 the Meet SE is like the cheapest OBSBot they do. I think you can get it for like $60 or something like that. And if it's just single cable, and you are good to go. All right. Yeah. Any more?
We haven't agreed this or anything, but maybe if he decides to do that, maybe the creative amplifiers can chip in and buy him some black tape or masking tape.
Gaffer's tape. I thought you were going to say we'll chip in for an extra long USB-C cable, but
that's what I thought he was going to say.
Just a way for him to put it out of his way.
We want to see the results. Our generosity holds no bounds on this show, I can tell you.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be black. It could be a different colour.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly what you want. Just go crazy. You can have it in your brand colours if you want. Let's get some sort of yellowy orange tape. All right. Anything else from anybody before we really have to close this show? But it's been fun. We are back, I think, next week.
We are next week.
And it's all about AI and stuff like that, how we've been playing around with AI and using different sort of tools and how we integrate AI into our workflow, because if you don't integrate it now, you will be missing out. So at least use some form of AI into your workflow, and it's just going to help your quality of life and make things easy for you when you're creating your content. All right. So thank you so much, Lisa and Mark, for joining, and thank you everybody who's joined us as well. Wonderful comments. Nice to see your shining virtual faces out there, and we will see you same time, same place next week. Until then, goodbye.
See you then.